Hello.
everybody.
Hello.
That's my Tim Grimes impression, even
This,
though I'm not Tim.
this is the real Tim Grimes on his seeming deathbed here. Hello. I'm actually in a small row, a small chair in my daughter's room, so I feel very comfortable. Thanks for having me
Oh,
on.
yeah, of course, man. We're back. Tim is doing his series on Joseph Murphy and SP topics, manifesting marriage, all of that type of stuff, whether you're a man or a woman. I'm doing my series over here on this channel talking about David Hawkins and the map of consciousness, manifesting, and how all of us are pretty much on either the bottom echelon or the upper echelon or the middle echelon of the map of consciousness. Quite frankly, most of us are operating on the lower half, which is not where you want to be. You guys have been following me, you've been watching the videos that are all going on in this series. And right now, we are getting ready to touch base on pride and courage are the next two levels. Pride at 175 on the energetic score, and courage is at 200. So, with that being said, Tim, your take on pride on the map of consciousness and how it relates to manifesting an SP.
Um, First of all, normal disclaimer when I talk about the Hawkins map of consciousness, I personally don't put much literal stock in the map. I think that it's helpful to look at in terms of the scores. Like right now we're looking at 175 and 200. I think that's helpful, but I use it more figuratively than like, oh, he's at 150, she's at 250, she's at 25, he's at 50. I just, that sounds like amateur hour to me. Um, and most of the stuff, LOA stuff is amateur hour. Um, it's just not serious. Hawkins was a serious guy, but I don't know. Anyway, with that very with that kind of sobering opening, I love David Hawkins, and pride is something that is often looked at as a bad quality, having too much pride, but is in reality, I think, especially working with myself over the years and working with many people, a huge asset to help us. Very often we do not have as much pride as we should when it comes to our self-concept and how decent we are as human beings. We allow ourselves to be shamed, to be fearful, to feel despondent, to feel depressed, and we don't have enough pride in who we are intrinsically to pull ourselves out of it perhaps as quickly as we could if we did have that pride. You hear all the time all this again cliche LOA jargon. You are, loving Mother Earth, Universe, God, Pukadini, Nama, Nimi. But like that kind of language is used to give you a little bit of pride, to give you a little bit of, wait a minute, I don't have to let this narcissistic jerk push me around anymore. I can tell that guy to go take a hike, you know, and I can move on and be prideful enough to know that I am worth having a loving relationship with myself enough and inevitably with a partner if I love myself enough and want a partner. I can have enough pride to do that. So pride is a real asset in the same way that, we were speaking previously about how anger can be a real asset and is usually seen as a negative thing. It can be a wonderful thing, and so can pride. So yeah, that's my kind of contrarian take on that.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. And pride, again, you can utilize these things for better or for worse. I think when most people think about pride, they think about, for instance, Bible verses. You have to have that Bible verse, pride comes before the fall, pride comes before destruction. So basically, what a lot of people would say is when you're prideful, that's cool, but then you can pretty much expect something bad potentially to happen as a result of your pride. So every action has a reaction, as they say. And I think this is where, and I'm gonna be honest, I think a lot of people, in my opinion, they do use pride for the worst. They use pride for the wrong reasons. They don't know how to utilize pride for better reasons. And that could be due to a multitude of things, but pride still falls on the Hawkins map. Pride still falls under that hyperactivity. It falls under that hyperactivity. And I can see why, because when somebody has a lot of pride for something or themselves, that could cause them to take a lot of action. That could cause them to say, you know what, I believe in myself. I believe in whatever. Watch this. Watch me do this. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Oh no, I don't. It's just kind of difficult to breathe in this chair sometimes. So
Oh, okay.
I'm positioned very oddly.
I got you. I got you. But yeah, no. So pride can lead people again, better or for worse. Pride can lead people to take action for better, or pride can lead people to take action for worse. And in regards to SP, pride, a lot of times, especially when people don't know about these laws, people's pride gets the best of them. A lot of times when they're trying to manifest a old relationship. So, for instance, you could be on Instagram, you could be on TikTok, you could be on any of these social media platforms, and you could see your SP out having a good time, and you're questioning, oh, I wonder where they're at, who they're with. And your pride in that moment get the best of you, and it cause you to make a decision just to prove a point and say, okay, if my SP is out doing this, watch this. I'm gonna show up to that event as well, or I'm gonna go do this as well just to get back at them. And those types of examples are using pride for the wrong reasons, in my opinion. And you see a lot of times people do that type of stuff when they let pride get the best of them when it comes to, just looking at those situations and thinking from your ego, acting from this 3D world, because that's what, quite frankly, most people utilize pride for. Is it's one of those things in the 3D that people just utilize to their detriment. And I think it's sad because if you would you don't to me you don't utilize pride when you're in, what is it, good situations, in a sense. When you're in good situation, I think you more so utilize pride when you are potentially in bad situations.
Like anger, similar to anger, I think in that way.
Right. But I think the problem that we run into is people when they're in good situations, a lot of times they utilize pride in the worst way. And they start to think, well, wait a second, especially in regards to SP, some people start to think, well, wait a second, I don't need you. You need me. I'm the best person. I'm the breadwinner. I'm this, I'm that. I'm the prize in this relationship. And so they start to shut down and they start to push away their opinions of whoever their person is that they're in a relationship with. And that person starts to feel unheard or whatever the case may be. And so I think, again, you got to be very careful. And then quite frankly, on top of that, I think a big problem, which is why Tim and I always urge people to take action, which again, which is why pride, hyperactivity, that type of thing. So many people have so much pride. And quite frankly, a lot of people have pride that shouldn't have pride with reaching out to their SP. So many people, they have so much pride and it's, I'll never reach out to my SP. Yeah, I want them back, but I'll never reach out to my SP.
It's
Why?
unbelievable how many people this is. It's so wild to me.
Like, what do you have to prove? What do you there's nothing to prove. Why don't if you want them back, but you want them to reach out first, that's pride in the worst way. Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like, oh, I'm not gonna make the first move? I'm not gonna do now again, as Tim and I always like to say, it's nuanced. We get certain situations why you're not gonna make the first move. And rightfully so in some situations where you should not say anything or do anything. But this is a big thing that I see as well, which is why a lot of people don't get their SPs, is because their pride gets in the way of them sending that letter, sending that message, that their heart is like, nah, I don't want to do it. They did this, this, this. But at the same time, deep down, they know they want them back. So
Right.
you're being an antagonist against your feelings. Your heart is telling you, yeah, you want them back, but your head and your ego and your pride is saying, no, you better not send that letter because you're weak if you do. You have all these lies that you're telling yourself. You send that letter first. If you send that text message first, you're weak. You're begging. You're this. You're that. And that's not always the case. But yeah, you can go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, no, it's often the contrary where you're actually strong if you send that letter, if you reach out. And this is why we hear that great phrase, swallow your pride, all the time. And that's, again, why David Hawkins is such a wonderful teacher, because he talks all about making it so you can swallow your pride. And you know how he would say swallow your pride is you feel those feelings that come up, those feelings that say, oh no, I'm too good to do this. Or, he or she should contact me first. This isn't right. They did this wrong. I want to be back with them, but they did this bad thing. And until they apologize, I refuse to reach out. What Hawkins would say, I think, is feel those feelings when they come up. Don't pay attention to the thoughts, the narrative that's going on in regards to the situation, but the feelings underneath them. Feel those feelings of anger, resentment, fear, shame, etc. Feel into them, and then they will dissipate either quickly or gradually, and you will swallow your pride and be able to contact your SP. It is amazing, like we just were saying, how often we hear, oh, no, I want to talk to them again, but they need to reach out to me because they did this bad thing, basically. That's okay short term, I guess, but it's not okay if weeks or a month and a half or 2 months turns into many, many months or years. That's not being able to let go and swallow your pride, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things could be solved. A lot of these so-called problems could be solved if you just pick up the phone and send that message and say I'm sorry or do whatever.
Some of
Whatever.
the best SP advice, man. It's the SP advice we love to give.
Yeah, I mean, and we had a client. We had a client that Tim and I have been working with. And as always, you guys know if you guys want to work with us, the information is always in the comments below. Hit that link, fill out the questionnaire, free consultation, hear about our services. We can also hear about your situation and what you're going through and see if we could potentially help, give you some guidance on that quick free consultation. So don't hesitate to do that. But Tim and I had a client where this is this is literally what happened. It wasn't any of this LOA advice. We were listening to them tell their story, and they hadn't been in touch with family members and stuff like that. And we told them, listen, a lot of this stuff is just communication. We were actually, Tim and I just got off a car earlier with somebody, and we were talking about, I talked about the same thing. I said, yo, this whole situation is just a miscommunication with you and your SP. Yeah, there were certain things going on that accumulated over time, but really, this is just a miscommunication. If you would have just communicated how you felt, where you were at, none of this stuff probably would have happened. So now it's about getting that communication. But yeah, like I said, Tim and I, we had somebody in our group mastermind SP that we were working with, and we literally helped them get back in touch with family members and whoever else that they hadn't been in touch with in a while because there was all a big misunderstanding. And this is what happens. And in this person's head and this person's mind, I initially remember them saying, well, why should I do this? I didn't really do nothing. I didn't really, whatever, whatever. But it turns out there was never, being that they got back in touch, there was never a disagreement. There was never this big issue that they thought was the issue was going on. And it was just this beautiful reconciliation that happened. And it was all because of the, as Tim likes to say, common sense advice that we gave her that really had nothing to do with LOA.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy. Don't let this be you guys, whether you ever work with us or not. Like, don't let literally a miscommunication. And this person Marv is referencing, she didn't even remember what the problem had been, the miscommunication. But years went by without speaking to family. Don't let that be you. If that is you, and I'm sure some of you watching this video, that is you with family or a close friend or your SP or whatever, don't let your pride get in the way of your love and your common sense. Reach out if you can, with love. And then you're going much higher on the scale, the map of consciousness. You're way above 175.
Well, now you saying that is bringing you to the next one, which is courage, because it
Correct.
takes
That's what you
courage.
need.
It takes
Exactly.
courage to be able to reach out to that. And you know why else it takes courage is because guess what? Your SP probably doesn't have that, or whoever you've had
Exactly.
this spat with in the past, they probably don't have that, and they probably want to reach out to you potentially, but they're probably scared to death to actually make the first move, which is why I said in past videos, us having this knowledge, we have the bigger responsibility a lot of times. And like I said in past videos, it sucks. It sucks having to be the adult. It sucks having to be the mature one. It sucks having to, but with great knowing comes great responsibility, as they say, as that saying goes. You have to, in a lot of situations, not all situations, but in a lot of situations, you have to have the courage, which now isn't the courage on the map is in happiness. It's no longer in hyperactivity. Courage is up in that happiness area.
You get above 200 is the beginning of feeling okay, basically. Right? Is that the way he looks at it? It's something
Yeah,
like,
200 is basically in happiness and productivity.
right. And again, this is very important. I just want to underscore this. Your partner or that family member or that friend you haven't spoken to, they, in many cases, the majority of cases, I would say, they do in a way want to reach out to you, but they don't have the courage to do so they are stuck lower in that map, if we're using this map as a metaphor, uh of fear, shame, um or or like depression, like they don't feel safe to reach out.
Especially if they know they fucked up
Right.
first.
Right. So you're going higher up here and getting into this realm that you want to be in on the map when you utilize courage. And again, so much of this, see, in my opinion, really, it's like there's no difference usually between good common sense and LOA. And that's why, like, Marv and I always say, like, you read the Bible, like, people are like, oh, there's all these different interpretations. And like, Neville's got a really different interpretation. But then there's a lot of the Bible, the famous parts of the Bible, where you read and you're just like, oh, yeah, that makes fucking common sense. Like, that's good fucking advice. That's why with Joey Murphy, I'm always like, this is like something your wise old grandpa would say. Like, this all goes together. There's this, ancient wisdom that just is always true. And a lot of good LOA advice is that. So don't get fooled by the techniques and the theory. The underbelly, the main part is often what we're discussing right here, including having courage to interact in a loving way, even when you're scared or what have you.
Right, exactly. And you alluded to it, Tim. Those techniques, don't get caught up in those techniques because we were talking off camera, but the techniques, a lot of times people don't realize techniques, in a sense, are good for helping you get something quickly, potentially. Like those techniques are good for helping people get an SP back, doing sats or doing affirmations or whatever the case may be. But oftentimes what I've found is techniques are not doing some of these techniques are not good for helping people keep what it is that they want. And that's the huge distinguishment that I want to make with doing techniques. Techniques have their place for sure. But in my opinion, very few people know how to utilize techniques to keep what it is that they want, which is why I always say techniques help you get what you want, but they don't help you keep what you want. Keeping what you want, what helps you do that is doing this work that Tim and I always talk about, doing the work, quite frankly, that most people don't want to do, that most LOA coaches tell you, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. And people in comments and videos tell you, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is just live in the end. Easier said than done, as Tim and I have always said. But from what I've found is the people that actually want to take the time to do the work, to do the self-love, to do the self-concept stuff, those are the people that typically can keep and maintain something a lot longer than other people, because other people, they'll use a technique and they'll say, you know what, I'm going to manifest them, which takes courage, right? Which is takes productivity, which you'll do that and you'll get results But then what happens is once you get what you want, you'll probably stop. And then when you start to snowball, you'll probably try to pick that technique back up, but you're picking the technique back up from a place of panic. And it's not really from a loving place or a place of knowing, from a place of I amness. It's from a place of desperation, a place of lack. So you're doing these techniques because you haven't done the somatic work, for instance, with somebody like Tim, to really feel into that stuff and to really know that this is going to be a roller coaster where it's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. Because regardless of what any teacher tells you, that's how life is going to be. That's how your relationship is going to be. Your relationship ain't going to be, oh, I got my SP now. Everything's going to be all good. No, you're still going to fight. You're still going to have arguments. You know, what you don't hear about from people in relationships is people in relationships sometimes they could go a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months mad at each other, not talking, still be married or just still be in a relationship, but the relationship, like these are the types of things you don't hear about. And I know because I talk to people. I talk whether it's clients or people that are not clients, people that have been married for years. These are the types of things that, and people think LOA is just going to fix all of this. No, LOA helps gives you the tools to deal with this when it shows up. That's what it does.
Yeah, real LOA is more holistic. And it's all this other stuff that Marvin and I are talking about, including the reason we love David Hawkins, which is letting go the way that David Hawkins describes it. That's shadow work, inner work, whatever term you want to use, self-concept work. If you really want to do self-concept work and inner work, the letting go process that David Hawkins describes particularly well in the first two chapters of Letting Go is going to help you much more long term in all likelihood than doing something like SATs. Because, Neville, as great as he was, said, my techniques are figurative. Okay, they're to get me to this place where I can change my self concept. But what Neville was really interested in was changing his self concept and helping people change their self concept. That's deeper imaginative work than just doing SATs for everything. SATs or the lullaby method, affirmations of any type can help you do that, but they are a tool to get you something in the 3D, generally speaking, and they're not the actual profound interchange that Neville was pointing at, and that, in my opinion, someone like Hawkins will help you actually do more to become more accepting of who you are and more loving of who you are and more able to let go of the resistance to having feelings like fear, shame, etc., and to move up that map figuratively so you get to a more loving wonderful place. But Marv, I just want to spend a minute here because this has been on my mind a little bit. We hear all the time in the LOA space. This is partially because I've been back on Reddit and read some of my comments of people like, but this does work. Like, but you can just do SATs and change your life. You can just do robotic affirmations. And as we always talk about, there's a little bit of nuance to this stuff, but that's the thing. These people are right. It can work. Here's the difference. Just because it can work doesn't mean it's going to motherfucking work for you. It's probably not. Be fucking smart. Okay? A lot of shit can work. It can work. There's a 0.1% chance of it working, right? I would rather have an 80 or 90% chance of it working than the 0.1 fucking percent. It's false equivalence to say something can work versus something probably will work. Like if you work with Marvin and I, we will improve your fucking self-concept. You will be able to attract a great person into your life. And if for some reason you can't, you will have an improved enough self-concept that you really will not care that much. That will fucking happen. That not can happen, that will fucking happen. Okay, that's very different than like, oh, I can just do SATs to change my life. Sure, that can happen, but it probably fucking won't. When you do real work like we're talking about, it will happen. Huge distinction. So I thought that rant was necessary because people don't get that. And I'm sick of reading these dumb Reddit and YouTube comments of people who are just ignorant. Don't be stupid. Use common sense. You're wise enough to use common sense and to be a good person.
Well said. I totally concur with all of that. And we'll be right back after these messages. No, let me stop.
Dun, dun,
Um,
dun, dun.
nah, that was a great soliloquy, man. It's this LOA stuff is it just hurts that so many people are lost and so many people they're just waiting. They're just sitting around waiting when they could be doing or they could be resolving themselves. And again, this stuff is nuanced. There is a time and a place where you should be waiting, but there's a time and place where you shouldn't be waiting.
Can I say too, because we're talking about Hawkins, waiting, if you wait and let go the way David Hawkins talks about in chapter 2 of his book, Letting Go, that's going to fucking help you. If you're waiting, don't wait being stupid. Wait that way. Then you're not actually waiting, you're doing something. I'm getting pissed, Marv.
Huge distinction. Yeah, no, you're right, man. It's as Tim says in his one of his videos, as I've said maybe once or twice, Neville wasn't an SP teacher in my opinion. And there's so much more better SP advice than using SATs and all that type of stuff. There's just so much more better advice. And the success stories are loud, right? But you don't hear about the failures. And the failures are a lot. A lot.
Easily 10 times, if not 100 times, the amount of success stories are the failures.
But nobody talks about the failures. It's no different than life. People don't talk about their failures when they become successful. All these guys that become millionaires, billionaires, you don't hear about all the struggles. You don't hear about all the times that they lost. All you hear about is their wins. That's what you hear about. That's what's plastered all over the news. That's what's plastered over social media. Is that stuff. But the losses, and this is what Tim and I are trying to project, because I think a lot of coaches in general, and I think people in general, I think they're afraid. It's taboo to talk about failure in this community.
Failure and fear.
Yeah, people don't want to talk about failure and fear in this community. They want to talk like it's a 100% success rate for this stuff working. And
If
that
you
you
if you do it right, it's going to work. Again,
right.
if and they make it sound like doing it right is easy. Like you go to the market and shop for a recipe and that's it. Couldn't be further from the fucking truth. Oof. Awful advice. A lot of these coaches mean well. Normal disclaimer. Just don't trust them.
Yeah, I mean, we just the other day, we talked to somebody who had talked to a few different coaches, and they all basically.
I got a video. Actually, by the time this comes out, the video will probably be out. I went into more detail about that
Oh,
because
you
it's
did?
wild.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm not even going to talk about it, guys. Go watch Tim's video when Tim drops that. I'm not even going to bring it up, but yeah, man. Bottom line, if you want real SP advice, if you want to know how to really navigate relationships, keep relationships, how to deal with stuff when stuff gets hard in relationships or while you're single or trying to get somebody back, whatever the category is, this Hawkins map can potentially help you. Working with people like Tim and I can help you because we can help you feel through it, do somatic work, all of that type of stuff, and help you get real results that feel productive. Because a lot of times doing affirmations for a lot of people and that type of stuff doesn't feel productive to people, but they keep doing it anyway because you just got to persist, as
Just
they
gotta
say.
persist. Gotta persist. You
So,
you do have to persist in the sense that you got to keep living, and you shouldn't persist with bad advice. If it's broke, fix it.
if it ain't broke, then don't fix it.
Right.